A self-made man once told an interviewer that luck had nothing to do with his fortune. He was wrong, but not in the way you assume. Luck built the opportunity. What separated him from every other person who touched that same opportunity and walked past it was a mind trained to move toward discomfort instead of away from it. That single difference is the entire subject of this video. You have been sold discipline as the answer. Wake up earlier. Save harder. Cut the coffee, cut the subscriptions, cut the small joys that make an exhausting week bearable. This advice is not wrong. It is simply beside the point. Discipline without a rewritten identity is a man rowing harder in a boat pointed the wrong direction. Your habits were never the real problem. The architecture underneath them is, and no one has ever asked you to look at it directly. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something modern self-help conveniently forgets. That power is not seized by the virtuous, but by those willing to see reality exactly as it is, without flinching and without decoration. He wrote that a man who wishes to act entirely up to his profession of goodness among so many who are not good will surely come to ruin. Translate that into money, and it sharpens into something uncomfortable. The person who insists on staying realistic, grounded, and sensible about their finances is often the one quietly guaranteeing they never leave the tier they were born into. Behavioral economists have spent decades studying why intelligent, capable people make financial decisions that work against them. The findings are consistent and uncomfortable. Scarcity does not just limit your bank account. It narrows your entire field of vision, consuming so much mental bandwidth that long-term thinking becomes a luxury you cannot afford. This is not a character flaw. It is a documented cognitive tax, and almost no one accounts for it. Which means the shift you actually need is not motivational. It is structural, and it starts somewhere most people never think to look. The first pattern hiding beneath your financial life is the comfort ceiling. You have built a version of stability that feels earned, and some part of you is terrified to disturb it. Every time an opportunity arrives that might multiply your future, a quieter voice calculates the risk to your present. That voice sounds like wisdom. It is often fear wearing wisdom's clothing, and it has been dressing itself well for years. The hidden cost is not the money you fail to make. It is the decade you spend defending a ceiling as though it were a foundation. The wealthy do not eliminate this fear. They simply stop mistaking it for a signal to stop. The shift begins the moment you notice that comfort and safety are not the same word, no matter how similar they feel at midnight when you are doing the math again. The second pattern is the approval tax, the invisible premium you pay to be perceived as doing well, rather than the quieter cost of actually becoming someone who does. Every purchase made to signal arrival instead of build toward it is a transaction with your future self, and your future self did not agree to the terms. The wealthy tend to be strikingly unconcerned with how their choices read to a room. They spend where it compounds and stay invisible everywhere else. The mental shift is brutal in its simplicity. Ask whether a decision builds leverage or buys an audience. Most financial decay begins the exact moment that question stops being asked, and it rarely announces itself when it does. Now sit with something you already know but have likely never said aloud, because saying it changes what you owe yourself. You have treated confidence as a prerequisite for action, when in every documented case of real financial independence, confidence arrived after the action, not before it. You were sold the reverse order. You have spent years waiting on a feeling that action itself was always meant to produce, and the wait has cost you more than any bad investment ever could. This is not encouragement. It is a correction, and corrections are supposed to be uncomfortable. The third insight is the postponed life, the quiet agreement you have made with yourself that real living begins once the numbers finally look right. This agreement feels responsible. It is actually a form of self-abandonment dressed as patience. The cost is not measured in dollars, but in years spent rehearsing for a life you have not yet permitted yourself to enter. The wealthy rarely wait for permission from their bank balance. They build the life in motion and let the numbers catch up to the decision. not the other way around. The reframe is uncomfortable. The version of you waiting for enough money to start is the same version who will find a new reason once it arrives. The fourth pattern is the competence trap, and it catches the most capable people precisely because it rewards them for staying still. You have become excellent at your role, reliable, indispensable even, and that excellence has quietly become a cage with very good lighting. Being needed is not the same as being positioned. The hidden cost is a decade of competence mistaken for progress, while equity, ownership, and leverage accumulate somewhere else, in someone else's name. The wealthy treat mastery as a stepping stone toward ownership, never as a final destination. The shift is asking not how you become better at this, but who actually owns the value you are creating while you do. The fifth pattern is quieter than the rest and more expensive. Call it the honesty avoidance, the way you have learned to describe your finances in language soft enough not to alarm you. Tight month instead of dangerously close to zero. Figuring it out instead of no plan at all. This vocabulary was never protecting your peace. It was protecting you from the one conversation that could actually change something, the one with yourself, conducted without flattering language. The wealthy tend to speak about money with almost clinical precision, because precision is the only language that produces useful decisions. Vague language produces vague outcomes, every time, without exception. The sixth insight is the one most people cannot see because it lives beneath language entirely: identity debt. You have likely built financial goals that outpace the self-image you privately hold. You want more, but some unexamined part of you still identifies as someone who is careful, modest, not the type. That mismatch is not solved by earning more money. It resolves only when the internal story updates first. Machiavelli warned that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because everyone sees what you appear to be, but few grasp what you actually are. Most people never even confront what they actually are to themselves. Your bank account will always find its way back to matching your identity, no matter how many times you force it upward through sheer effort alone. Here is the uncomfortable fact you have likely known for years without ever letting it fully land. None of these 6 patterns are about money. They are about a self-concept that was formed long before you earned your first paycheck, and it has been quietly running your financial life ever since, undetected, unchallenged, treated as personality instead of what it actually is, a decision you never consciously made. If you are still watching, ask yourself honestly which of these patterns you recognized first, and notice how quickly you tried to explain it away. That reflex, the immediate justification, is not protecting you. It is the mechanism keeping the pattern intact. The uncomfortable truth is that you already knew most of what was said here. You simply had not been asked to look at it directly, without the comfort of distraction. Do not subscribe because this channel told you to. Subscribe because you just recognize something about yourself you cannot unrecognize, and you will need somewhere to keep sharpening that sight. Wealthiavelli exists for people who no longer want to be spoken to gently about money, for those choosing to see the system as it actually operates, not as it is politely described. Every week, the goal is the same: expose the mechanism, not the symptom, so you stop treating financial struggle as a personality trait and start treating it as an architecture that can be redesigned deliberately by you. You do not need a better budget. You need a self that no longer negotiates with its own smallness. The people who accumulate real, lasting power were never the ones who wanted it the most. They were simply the ones who stopped asking permission to want it at all, and permission, it turns out, was the only thing you were ever actually waiting on.